That's right, chat. This is the tier list. It's all her. All her. Always has been. Ooga booga. Yeah. All right. So good list. Hi, Sad. Yeah, I'm gonna be pulling it up in just a second. Oh, snap. I thought I had the window for this ready, but apparently I didn't. Okay, here we are. Here's what I'm gonna do. That's not what I'm gonna do. Expand this just a smidge. Gotta make this visible for the audience, right? Yeah, good enough. Alright. This should work. I think we're just gonna rank them alphabetically. I had no actual real game plan for this. It's just, there's the list of abnormalities. I'm gonna decide based on how much I like their design, how much of a pain in the ass they are to deal with, how much I like the ego gift that they drop, how valuable they are in gameplay. Just random crap like that, however I'm feeling about it. Smashability, oh no. Nothing there, S tier. That'd be kind of crazy. Fucking, Melting Love S tier? No. We're not doing that. Fuck Melting Love, and not in that way. Alright, so up first we have Dimensional Refraction variant, I'm pretty sure. No, this is actually, megahertz. The Noise, as I like to call it. The Noise is, I don't remember what it dropped, actually. Oh, I said 1.78 megahertz. It's 1.76 megahertz. And if I remember correctly, it causes a problem if you fuck up and don't work on it again. Lore-wise, it's quite important, because apparently I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a recording of the Smoke War. Or, you know, insofar as abnormalities can represent anything or be anything. It starts fucking with rooms, I remember that much. It's a bit finicky, though. It's very... Hi, XQC Viewer 321. How are you doing today? It is one of the... when the work result was Abnos, but... it's not as much of a pain in the ass as the other ones. So I don't feel as bad about it. It's significantly easier to handle than the other ones. The ego suit is pretty cool looking. I'm kind of inclined to put it in D tier, but because it's not too painful to deal with, I'm putting it in C. I like the concept. Dealing with it isn't too bad, but it's kind of an annoying gimmick. Next, Aurune. Terrible. This is a terrible abnormality. I hate it. I hate it. There is no winning with this abnormality. When the work result is good, it breaks out. When the work result was bad, it breaks out. And it teleports. It is so goddamn annoying. And despite what Limbus Company might tell you, that its ego gift isn't that, like, big a deal. Probably smashable, though. Sad that Ryoshi has a really cool ID stuck in that Pepto-Bismol ass suit. It's a good thing we have skins now. Next abnormality. Apocalypse Bird. S tier. Does that surprise anyone? It is such a cool concept for an abnormality where you're getting, like, the Exodia played against you. And it's a skill check. Like, do you know how to play this game? And if you do, how well can you manage it? Because if you do a perfect job and nobody dies while suppressing it, everyone gets one of the best gifts ever. Plus, when you get the suit, you never have to deal with it again. It's a one-time thing, and it's awesome. It rewards you for knowing how to play the game, and it's such a cool event when it happens the first time. I'm honestly glad it happened to me during a Hokuba suppression, because that really solidified the feeling of hopelessness. Do I like birds? Hell yeah, I love birds. Bavi. And it's got one of the strongest egos in the entire game. Its suppression gimmick is actually fun, engaging, and rewarding for people who know how to play the game. Everything about it is just chef's kiss. Next Abno. Army in Pink / Army in Black. I got it very late into my playthrough, so I didn't get to see it really screw with my facility. I imagine if I'd gotten it earlier, it definitely would have really screwed me over in the long run. But because I got it when I did, it wasn't a terrible thing. I think it only broke out once, but that was when like we were in the trenches dealing with Bina on day 50 or day 49, excuse me. Its ego gift is really good, and when coupled with the Justicia ego gift, sorry, I'm talking about its ego suit and weapon. Well, the gift too. When you pair the gift with Justicia, it almost makes you look like a tokusatsu hero. So I'm into that. For that reason, I'm gonna put it into A. It's pretty good. I didn't make much use of its helping gimmick, but for when I got it, it was quite manageable. Wasn't giving me any trouble. And just generally, I think it overall helped with my playthrough. Next Abno, my goat. Backwards clock, S tier. This abnormality helped me deal with Bina, and for that alone, it gets an S rank. Its utility is extremely valuable for the cost. It's a very powerful cost. It's a very steep cost, but what you get out of it is so worth it if you know what you're doing. If you just use it and someone explodes, oops. But it has very specific use cases, but those use cases are so powerful that it is entirely worth exploding one of your agents for. Next Abno, I'm pretty sure that's Beauty and the Beast. I hate this thing. I think it's ugly. It's a decent trainer, but since it's one of those Abnos with an instant kill gimmick, you technically never have to worry about it if you're paying attention, but that's true of everything in this game. A neutral Abno is like, it will kill you if you mess up. A good Abno is, it won't kill you if you mess up. A bad Abno is, it will kill you even if you do a good job. A terrible Abno is, it will kill you especially if you do a good job. Beauty and the Beast is like the neutral Abno where it will kill you if you aren't paying attention to it. And that is if you do repression twice in a row, I think. It's a good trainer in that it teaches you to cycle between which work you're doing on it. But if you're strictly trying to train one of your employees or any stats, it's cool that the best work result is repression because that will increase your justice, and that's like one of the best stats. But I'm pretty sure you can also train on quite a few other abnormalities for less of pain in the ass to deal with. For that reason, I think I'm gonna put it in B, maybe C, B. This thing. The earbuds, I forgot what they're called. It's the thing that swaps your white and blue stat, I think. Behavior adjustment. I sometimes wonder if the sheep Abno is supposed to be like some kind of aberration of it. This is one of the ones where if you swap the stats, it could be useful for you to train stats. But there's a chance your agent will die. I think what it does, let's see. It doesn't swap stats, but it increases the stat that dictates your justice, and decreases the stat that determines your prudence. So it can raise you an up-down a tier, which means it has a very niche use for, like, if you have Abnos that are more inclined to, like, agents that have higher justice, or Abnos that don't like or that don't like higher intelligence, which I think is useful for, like, Scarecrow. I think that's it. But like I mentioned, since it does lower your stat, you can use it to, like, train. The only thing is that if you return it too soon, your agent will panic and then die. If your agent panics at all, they'll die. Which could be a problem. It was never a problem for me, but I like to play things as safe as I can. I don't think, depending on the circumstances, it could be too much risk for the reward. But since it's an abnormality, I can technically ignore as long as I wait out the timer. It's definitely safer than Teresia in that respect. I think I'll put it at, like, a B. Next Abno. Big and will be bad wolf. I don't like its cartoonish vor. D tier. Okay, actual explanation. One, I actually don't really like it when it's got that filled up belly. It makes you uncomfortable to look at it. But other thing. If it breaks out and Red's in the same facility, that's going to be incredibly annoying. I don't like dealing with that. I like its ego. It's cool. It's I believe it's Cobalt Scar. I think it looks cool. The stats are okay. I think the story is fine. I do like the idea of an Abno that interacts with another Abno. But unfortunately, that interaction is awful. And makes my experience significantly worse. So, I don't know. I could raise it to C. I'm gonna leave it in D tier for dog, though. Big Bird! My man! I don't know whether to put you at A or S. I'll put you at A. You do have an annoying instant death gimmick going on, but most of the time it's pretty manageable. It has a high cliff-off counter, so you can get away with its clerk rights management. Does ordering within rows matter for ranking? Not really. If you want it to matter, I'll put Big Bird above Army in Black. If it does, it doesn't matter that much, and I'm not really putting too much thought into where one goes above the other. Its thing is that it starts at a 5 counter, and it goes down every time you get a bad work result, or if 5 employees die, which includes clerks. But it doesn't count execution bullets. So if you have it and Queen of Hatred in the same facility, you can satisfy Queen of Hatred while also not pissing off Big Bird, so it's kind of chill to deal with. Of all the clerks' rights activists, the Big Bird's probably the chillest one. It really sucks when he breaks out, but he doesn't usually break out. I guess getting him early on would be kind of bad, but I didn't, so... And the other thing is, Big Bird's ego, drip. And also, he gave Hohenheim aura, so... Next, Judgment Bird. S tier. One of the few Abnos that gives a pale damage ego. It inflicts pale damage, which is hard to deal with early on. At least I'm at A. Yeah. Sorry, man. I would have put you in S2, but you got... You're probably the scariest when you break out. I never had Judgment Bird break out, but Judgment Bird is very easy to handle once you have someone who's tanky enough to, like, deal with its work. The problem is, if you get it early enough, it'll kill you pretty bad. But the thing is, the moment you do enough successful work with it to get Justicia Ego, you're good. That employee is going to become a god for most of the playthrough. And also, Judgment Bird probably has my favorite design of the 3 birds. Yeah, just overall, really solid Abno. Next Abno, Bloodbath. Nothing super remarkable for me. The lore bit about mentioning Carmen, pretty good. Dealing with the abnormality, it doesn't break out, but it does have an instant death mechanic. But at the same time, it's kind of like... It's not that big a deal. You don't usually end up triggering the scenario in which it'll instantly kill an employee. And it's also a really good trainer. I'm going to put it at the top of B for Bloodbath. Blue Star. I have mixed feelings about you. You are a very picky and temperamental bastard of an Aleph, whatever. But you have an extremely powerful ego and your design is interesting, but because it's a bunch of feet, I can't put you in S. I'm sorry, bro. You're not invited. And also, God help you if you get this while you're doing the Malkuth realization. Holy shit. No, not the Malkuth one, the Hod one. Ooh! For context, the Hod realization, your stats go down every few, every time you hit a new cycle in the quota management. So by the time you're like 6, where you meet the requirement to finish the suppression, your stats, a rank 5 agent could have been demoted to like a rank 3 in terms of sheer stat nerf. And Blue Star's thing is that if you're, I believe if it's your prudence that's below 4, you just instantly die interacting with it, and it breaks out. And this thing breaking out, that's basically a game over scenario. You have to reset. So I'm going to put it in an A. Next, censored. I have mixed feelings about its design, where obviously it's a censor bar for lore reasons, because it's supposed to be like something so horrific even the manager can't look at it. But it's not just a censored bar. When it breaks out, it's like an abstraction of censored logos that form abstract shapes, and it is mega freaky. I don't like the implication that it propagates by violating and killing your employees. It's not very much of an implication, to be fair, but I hated dealing with it early on because I got it and nothing there as like not my first 2, but 2 of the Abnos in my first playthrough in Tifret's floor. And wow, if I didn't have Skin Prophecy that same playthrough, it would have been over. Hi, Angela. How you doing? That said, because I was able to overcome censored, I was able to get my first Aleph ego. Aleph. I'm gonna call it Aleph. Let's call it Aleph. I'm going to put you in A. You are easier to deal with than Blue Star. And even though you're technically also a nightmare scenario if you break out, I do remember picking this for suppressing an Aleph in one of Gebra's missions. How'd I do? I'm just chilling. I know that Limbus Company's updating tomorrow, so I decided it would be in theme to do a LobCorp tier list, or to do it today, because this was one of the rewards for the Scufflathon I did a couple of months ago. So I figure, hey, it's the season, you know? Next Abno. I was going to call it Life of a Daredevil, but I'm pretty sure that's just the ego it drops. The actual Abno name is Crumbling Armor. And to be honest, I kind of don't fuck with this. I don't like the idea that the ego gift will just kill an employee if it decides to do a certain kind of work on anything else once you get it. But at the same time, the actual ego that it drops, the weapon specifically, is a pale damage weapon, and there are very few of those, which means it's definitely something you should get at some point because pale damage is very rare. So I think I'm going to put it in B. Katanas are cool. Next Abno. Their phrase shoots. S tier. This man is goated. Random chance. Well, not random, but like. Well, it technically could be random if you screw up its work, but. I do enjoy having a button to instantly kill my allies. But no, I'm going to say they absolutely cooked with his design. The ego that he drops is really good too. I love the gimmick the weapon has. I love the gimmick that the Abno has, and it's a perfect trainer. You could feasibly train any stat on their phrase shoots, even though I choose to just do, I believe it's repression? He is probably the best trainer in the game, and my god, if using his request wasn't the best thing ever for suppressing some of the ordeals. Yeah, just overall an extremely useful Abno for almost every purpose. And frankly, the downsides are very limited, if not outright extremely rare. Alright, later, Angela. Next Abno. Dimensional Refraction variant. Kind of goated, actually. I think I'm putting it in A. So here's why. It rarely broke out for me. It is a problem when it breaks out because you won't immediately be able to tell. Unless you're monitoring it the second you mess up. And that can be a problem. But, on the other hand, it's pretty easy to work with. Especially late game. And I think it's pretty forgiving. I think it gives you 2 chances before it breaks out. And also, its ego, goated. An invisible hammer. That's such a cool idea. You can see like it's an outline, but it's like kind of distorted. Also, Hohenheim uses it, and Hohenheim's my favorite Limbus Comedy character. I also think as a horror concept, it's terrifying to think about. Like, you can only tell if it's in the room if you can see, like, random floating body parts. Because it's already too late for that person. They're in the zone. That's horrible. But also really cool. It would be a really funny gimmick if I pressed this and the stream just ended. Yeah, don't touch me. Absolute meme. It's like, it's a funny joke once. But after that, it's not funny anymore. I should have saved it for last to end the stream. I was thinking about it, but because I already said it out loud, I'm like, well, it's too late. We'll do it for the recording. We'll fix it in post. Dream of a Black Swan. Kind of D tier. Like, its gimmick is extremely annoying, but even if it isn't that difficult, it's just like, I think the design of the Backstreet Boys is not very good. When it breaks out, Black Swan is very annoying. I don't like it. It's kind of ugly, and that's probably intentional. But also, I rarely used its ego because, or at least the ego weapon, because it reflects damage. And, surprise, a facility with Punishing Bird and that thing? Think about it. Think about how that interacts. It's not good. Train ride from hell. Juice is absolutely not worth the squeeze. The benefits it provides are like, whatever, right? They can be pretty good. But if you fuck up with this thing, if you forget, that's like half of your facility gone. I do find the chaos of seeing a random train just run through the entire facility. I find it really funny. But the joke gets old after a couple of times. Fairy Festival. It's going in B tier, and here's why. It is a relatively harmless Abno. It is the first Abno you'll probably get that will train you to really pay attention to whether these Abnos are actually beneficial or not. Like, once you see that first entry of, if your agent decides to work on another abnormality while these things are blessing them, they will kill him instantly. That's when you're like, oh, this shit's real! Now, for an observant player, that's rarely, if ever, going to be a problem. In fact, I don't think I ever got any agent killed by the fairies. I may have gotten one killed, but I don't think I did. But after a while, it's one of those Abnos I would prefer not to have just because it's not particularly useful in any capacity. Wingbeat is a cute ego, but you grow out of it fast. It's very much an early game Abno that once you're doing, like, reset runs, you don't want to use it anymore. And it's not a particularly useful trainer. It has its use for, like, running down the clock for, like, HOD suppression. It's good for testing resistances in Malkuth suppression. And I guess it heals during the Netsack suppression? It could be useful through Yesod. Kesed. Hookma, I guess, but by Hookma, you're like really trying to push for a high P count, so if I'm going for a safe Abno, I would rather just go to one Sin over this. So, like, it's useful early on. It teaches a valuable lesson. It's like the definition of an early game Abno, which is, you know, whatever. Firebird. S tier. Love its design. Love its gimmick. And if you could believe it, it is a really good trainer. Because you need to manage its counter by either doing good or bad work, you can actually manipulate it by training other stats. because I believe, I don't remember if it's insight or repression that works the best on it. But if you do anything else, you'll do a bad work. But your agent that's dealing with this tier of Abno at this point should typically be strong enough to handle even doing like the worst possible job on it. And it still gets experience for doing it. And so you can go back to switching back and forth between which thing you want to do. And of course, it drops a very, very good ego weapon. When it breaks out, it's actually not that big of a deal. It's quite manageable. I guess you should also keep an eye out for, like, if it's in a facility with an Abno that breaks out quite often, but again, if you're, especially on a reset run, strategic placement of this thing can make it extremely valuable to have. Because you can milk that bad boy for a lot of boxes, too. Anyway, next Abno. That's the prayer one. Flesh Idol. I kinda don't like this one. It's got the same thing of, like, train, but not as flashy. The idea with this one is that you keep praying to it. The agent that's praying to it will start taking damage gradually. And you especially have to pay attention to how much time you spent praying to it. If you spend too little time praying to it, the employee will die. If you spend too much time praying to it, everything in the facility will break out. And your employee will die. It can be very useful, but to me the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And if a meltdown happens and you're forced to interact with it, there's a minimum of 20 seconds waiting for it to go through before you can let your employee out or just have them die. And if you forget about it, oops, everything's broken out. That's pretty much a game over. So something I'm going to say over and over is that if you pay attention, yes, this thing can be very useful. But if you're not paying attention, it can be very unpleasant. And that's true of almost every Abno in the game. But in this case, the consequences of not paying attention are way too drastic for me. I'm going to put it in C tier for that. Forsaken Murderer. I'm going to put it in B tier right next to the fairies. It's pretty much for the exact same reasons. I will actually put it above fairies because, like Bloodbath, it's got lore implications with Carmen. And also because of its association with Mirsault. I hate that it looks like skin. I hate the gimp suit look. And to be honest, I kind of hate the fact that it breaks out. It's very picky. How can I hate Mirsault in the gimp suit? I don't hate Mirsault in the gimp suit. I just hate the gimp suit generally. I love Mirsault. He's my favorite sinner. But here's the thing. The point of Forsaken Murder is this is going to be the first Abno that breaks out. At least that's what it seems to be intended for. It's an early Abno that you can get pretty much day 1, day 2. And it's typically going to be the first one that breaks out for doing bad work. Meaning this is probably going to be the first thing that you have to suppress. And that's a good lesson for an early game player. But after a while, it becomes just annoying if for some reason he just doesn't like that you did work on him. If you just happen to get unlucky, he just comes out. And even by the time this becomes an annoyance, you just slap him once and he goes back. But if you've got other Abnos that are sensitive to that kind of thing, it's annoying. But it's not super annoying. Which is why he, like, sits firmly in B tier. He's not particularly useful, but he's not particularly detrimental either. He's a good lesson for early game players. His ego is whatever, even if it's ugly. Fragment of the Universe. I think this fella only broke out once for me. I'm putting it in B tier because I think it's a good trainer for Prudence, I believe. That's the white stat. And I think it's a cool design. I think its story and the implications of what it intends to do is creepy. Even if we get the context of none of these Admirals are actually real. Or they're not actually real entities, so whatever. And he's a funny duding little fella. I don't remember what its ego looks like. I remember its ego gift is the heart that Don Quixote uses in her Queen of Hatred ID. Sir, your ticket. When the work result tier. Yeah, I don't think I have much else to say about Fragments of the Universe. It's also an early game app now. Arrgh! My neck! I'm gonna look at its ego one more time just to see what the actual suit looks like. Fragments of Somewhere is okay. It's an Orpal suit. Anyway, next. Funeral for the Dead Butterflies. S tier. Is anyone really surprised? Pretty much for the exact same reasons as their Frey shoots. It is an excellent trainer. It doesn't have as much utility as Frey shoots. But they absolutely cooked with this fella's design. Solemn Lament is like one of the sexiest looking egos I've ever seen. Also, it's very breedable. This is one of those Abnos where if it breaks out, it's absolutely on you for doing that. But at the same time, if I remember correctly, it's a Teth, so it's not a particularly dangerous Abno. Like, yeah, it can kill you by inflicting sanity damage, but he's pretty tame, all things considered. And again, it's kind of on you if he breaks out. The benefits to having Funeral for the Dead Butterflies is absolutely outweighs the cost or potential risk. Next Abno, Giant Tree Sap. Waste of my fucking time. It's not a particularly interesting abnormality. Oh, sorry. Funeral's head's here. Sorry, I misremembered. My bad. Point still stands. It's not as painful to suppress as pretty much anything else in this tier list. Yeah, point is, giant tree sap fucking sucks. Like, it is an absolutely uninteresting abnormality to me. It is a tree that lures in people with its juice, and the juice causes them to explode. I don't know. Maybe it's just personal preference, but I just don't find that interesting. It's one of those makes you restart the day once abnos. Yeah. And once you have maxed it out, I would absolutely memory poet. Because the actual utility of this thing is just non-existent. There's... Like, are you kidding? It'll heal a little... It'll heal your agent a little bit, but there's also a random chance to explode 20 seconds after drinking it. Okay? I'm gambling every time I use this thing. It's not good. And it's uninteresting. By contrast, we have the next tree abno. This is the good tree. Great with a cherry sauce. I'm gonna put it in mid-B, like there. I don't particularly like the trees in this game. They all range from risky to not worth it. This one's the most forgiving of the trees. Excuse me. But the thing about this tree is that you do a good enough job multiple times, it'll prime itself to instantly kill one of your employees. And it's not a particularly good trainer. It does benefit you if it kills an employee, if I remember correctly. Everyone in the facility gets healed if you sacrifice an employee to this thing. But I would rather not sacrifice an employee just for a full heal. That does have a situational use, but like... I don't want to do it. Next abno. Teddy bear. Happy teddy bear. This is the one that can kill you instantly. I forget if you keep working on it. Yes. If the same employee works on Happy Teddy Bear, they die. The ego is cute. The abnormality is cute. I like the concept. It's not a particularly good trainer. It does teach you to cycle employees, I guess. But it's not... Late game, it does not become very helpful. I'll also put it in B tier. In fact, I actually enjoy the version of it that exists in Limbus Company more. Next abno, Clouded Monk. Fuck you. He's a sauceless version of Mountain of Smiling Bodies. He's got cute egos, I guess. It's kind of ugly, actually. Also, I'm not a fan of seeing a naked old man walking around with a swollen belly. Especially one that can, like, just eat my employees like that. Fuck you. Letitia. C tier. She can be a good trainer, but if she gives an employee her gift, that effectively consigns that employee to working with her for the rest of the day. I am not fond of tying an employee to one abno. That can be very inconvenient. And because it's based on proximity, I think? Let me double check that, actually. If it's tied to proximity, that makes dealing with ordeals worse because that employee has a limited space to move around. Oh no, it's only if it goes to work. Only if the agent goes to work with the gift. So it's basically, it is a more forgiving version of the fairies. But I believe it's permanent for that day if you get the normal work result. So it's like the fairy, but it doesn't wear off and can actually be a bit more problematic because instead of just instantly killing the employee, it turns them into a monster and you have to suppress it. So, like, functionally, it's better overall than having to, like, get PE boxes from it and trading off of it. But it's also kind of a pain in the ass. Next abno, El Pianto de la Luna. What do you mean Blue Star not an S tier? It would be, but it's a finicky bastard. And it's very painful to have on, like, HOD Suppression Day. Or even Malkuth Suppression Day. Anyway, next abno. El Pianto de la Luna. S tier. I love this abno. It's so cool. And also, yes, wood. Don't at me. I love its appearance. I love its gimmick. I love the ego that it drops. And I love that when it breaks out, it starts playing its music and you beat the crap out of it. It really adds weight to dealing with it. It's so cool. Moonlight is such a good ego suit. And also, that art goes hard. And also, its weapon is a cane. I love beating the crap out of things with canes. I love that this is an abno that has a lot of things going on with it, where, like, if you interact with it and play music, it'll increase your party's stats, but your employee's stats, but it will also lower the HP of the specific employee who worked on it. It's an app that goes like, hey, you can take advantage of me, but you better make sure I think you're worth it, because I'm going to break out. And if you can't beat the crap out of me, I'm going to make you regret it. It's great. It's a fun Abno to have. Like, I actually like when it breaks out. Go figure. Helper. I'll give the little guy an S tier. He reminds me of Reddit. Little Reddit robot. But I also think it's an underrated trainer Abno. It's not as versatile as Freyshoots or Funeral, but you can do a decent amount of work on it, aside from, I believe, Insight. Insight pisses it off. When it breaks out, it is a bit painful. I remember it dealt a lot more damage to my employees, but I think that's because I give them the wrong suits for that. Helper is, if you could believe it, rather helpful. And frankly, I enjoy having that little guy in my facility. He's a good trainer. He's not that big of a deal when he breaks out. He's not particularly demanding. Next Abno. Little Red, huh? Where do I want to put you? I'm going to put you in A. I think Red Riding Hood isn't particularly useful for, like, suppression. She doesn't deal that much damage. She's like, okay. She's like an additional help. It's fine. When she breaks out, it's a bit annoying. But actually, if you come to think of it, she's kind of a good trainer. Not the best. But you can do a lot of work with her, and she's pretty forgiving about it. You suppress Gebra with her help? Yeah, she can be useful for that, but you know, I would rank her higher, but the fact that she can flip her shit and break out, and if you have the wolf in your facility, it becomes much more problematic to deal with. I think she fits squarely in A. I think that's a good spot to have her in. It's very comfortable for her. She's not having... She's not super problematic. She can be beneficial in certain scenarios. I think this is a good spot for her. Luminous Bracelet. Do you guys need me to explain this? You guys need to know why I put Luminous Bracelet at absolutely dog shit tier? Alright, let me explain. So here's how Luminous Bracelet works. It'll equip... The equipped employee's HP goes up by 15. I think it increases fortitude as well, so I guess it can be useful for that. And it's also meant to heal a certain amount of health every, like, few seconds or so. But here's the thing. Once you equip it, if your agent has max health for longer than a minute, death by cancer. If you return it without having full HP, death. But the kill shot for this fucking bracelet is that it doesn't fucking work. The regen it's supposed to have on you, where it's supposed to heal you every few seconds, it's bugged. It hasn't been fixed. It heals you once and then it stops. I think that's ass. And that's why that Abno goes there. Next Abno, Meat Lantern. Terrible. Terrible Abno. I think the little guy is kind of cute in a horrifying kind of way. It's obviously an anglerfish. I think it's funny. But again, it's one of those OpCorp jokes where it's funny the first time and then never again. Like, are you fucking kidding me? When the work result was bad, the Glyphoth counter lowered. When the work took less than 40 seconds to complete, the Glyphoth counter lowered. In other words, when the work result was good, the Glyphoth counter lowered. Take a guess what its Glyphoth counter is. That's right, chat. 1. It breaks out every time you want to work on it. And every time it breaks out, you have to figure out where it's gone. And if you don't, it'll just randomly eat your employees. That's so fun, guys. It's so fun. I enjoy doing it every time. And by every time, I mean 40 plus times because I have to work with it over and over. Aren't you so glad you got Meat Lantern? Piece of fucking shit. Melting Love. I'm putting her in B tier. Disgusting. Wood. I do like its log. I think that's pretty cool. Its design is legitimately horrifying. Its ego is very useful. It is very annoying to play around, though. I do like the idea that you have to effectively quarantine whoever works on it. But that is also very detrimental. Obviously, because it's an Aleph, whatever, its egos are very useful. And I would dare say required. But it is something I would get once and then mem repo and make damn sure that whoever has its egos doesn't die until I've done the BNS suppression. Because man, oh man, it's just a really annoying gimmick to play around. Let's see, next Abno. Pretty sure this is the portrait of Dorian Gray. Oh, wait, no, this is the mirror. This is Mirror of Adjustment. This is the one that can actually permanently lower your stats. So I don't like that. The first time it just swaps stats. But if the same employee uses it more than once, their stats get permanently lowered. Extremely niche uses, but generally you don't want your employees to have their stats permanently lowered. I'm putting in C. Because it can be useful, but it rarely, if ever, was. And by the time I got it, there was no point. And if you happen to get it in a facility where the Qlipoth meltdowns happen and you have to work on it, that sucks. Which one is this again? That's not Nothing There. Nothing There's the redacted one. Oh, God. Oh, fuck you. I remember which one you are, actually. Go to hell. Go to fucking hell. Absolute dog shit Abno. I hate this thing. It is so ugly. It is so annoying to have in a facility. And the fact that it's random chance to kill one of your employees, such a pain in the ass. There is no winning with this thing in your facility. I personally think it might be the worst Abno in the game. The button's there, but that's a one-time thing. Nameless Fetus is something you have to deal with consistently. It's really awful. It's really bad. Let's see. Next Abno, notes from a crazed researcher. I think this one can pop your employees, but it's also one of those tools that increases your stats. This one's kind of like the Heart Abno. I'm currently forgetting what this one's called. But it's basically the Prudence version of it. No, it's not like the bracelet because it doesn't heal you. It just increases your stat. The way it works is that if you don't work on anything or try to return it within 30 seconds of getting it, your employee will explode. But there is also one other instant death scenario where if you take a combined total of 60 HP and SP damage, they'll also instantly die. So it's like, I think you have to grab it, work on an Abno, return it, grab it again, work on something else, and then go back to return it. With a decent rhythm, it's fine. It's not as finicky as the bracelet, but it's not as free as the heart. So it is useful. But conditionally. Like a lot of things in this game. But the condition isn't super picky. It kind of is, which is why it's not going any higher. But it's fine. It's a really good abno, but you really have to keep tabs on it. Yeah, which is why I put, like, why I put Big Bird in A instead of S. It's why I don't put the noise any higher. It's also why I put Daredevil, not the fucking Crumbling Armor at the bottom of B tier. Same deal with the behavior adjustment. You'll find that B tier is pretty much the beneficial but has problems tier, essentially. And then the C tier is like beneficial but has really bad problems, or is otherwise not that beneficial. And then D tier is like fucking useless and also has a terrible downside. Next, Nothing There. I think we gotta give this guy S tier just out of sheer iconography, right? Sheer star power. Hello, manager? Hello? I love you. This and Censored were the first two Aleph Abnos that I got in the game, and I got them on the same day. Of all the Alephs, these are probably the easier ones to have gotten. And I will say Nothing There's, like, visual appearance is probably one of the most iconic things about Limbus Company. No. Lobotomy Corporation. Project Moon. I saw Nutty in chat, and my brain instantly became overwhelmed with Don Quixote. It has a fun suppression gimmick. If you fuck it up and you have to manually suppress it, it's pretty much a wash. I reset every time I fucked up work on Nothing There. Yeah, Nothing There's missed out on because it gives Gebra her mimicry. Gebra has a prototype version of mimicry, but I appreciate that Nothing There is actually an employee who became an instance of Nothing There. And the fact that that directly correlates to Gebra's backstory, I find infinitely interesting. And it is also thanks to Nothing There that we have vertical and horizontal split. Nothing There might not be my personal favorite Abno, but it's such a good concept, even if it is basically like The Thing, kind of. But it's also very freaky, like extra freaky in its own way. It's got its own flavor of freaky. It's nice. I don't really know if there's anything else I could say. Like, ego is good. Gimmick of the suit is good. The design is good. Its actual tie into the story is really good. I don't know if I would, though. Next Abno. Old Faith and Promise. Kind of D tier. So, like, chat, I don't know if you know this about me, or this is your first time in my channel right now. I once lived in Las Vegas, which is generally considered, like, the gambling capital of the world, or at least of the United States. I don't actually like gambling all that much. And in the context of Lobotomy Corporation, Old Faith and Promise, there's a chance that it will increase the stats on your ego gear, but there's also a chance that it permanently breaks the fucking thing, and I can't abide by that. There is no way I am putting anything higher than a Zane in there. And it only does it for the day, too. So, like, I super don't think the juice is worth the squeeze on that one. Thing is, I never broke my gears using it. Guy who got extremely lucky. I don't see what the problem is. I do like the version of it that exists in Limbus Company. That one's a perfectly fine trade-off of, like, just give me the fucking wheel. What? You want the wheel? Yeah, give me the fucking wheel. And then the wheel gift is 50-50 on whether the first ego that you use in combat does 150% damage or 50% damage. That's perfectly fine with me. Imagine if you were playing Limbus Company and then you interact with that Abno, and if you fucked the gamble, it just deletes one of your IDs. Next Abno. Old lady. Top of B tier, I think. It's an early game Abno that shows that there's consequences to ignoring abnormalities. It's a reminder to pay attention to abnormalities and to pay attention to, like, counters and stuff like that. But it also doesn't punish you very much for it. But it's also not very beneficial. That being said, the ego that it drops is a revolver. That's fucking hilarious to me. Why does Grandma have a gun? Why does Grandma have a 6-shooter? And also the idea that you can walk into this room and the grandma will tell you anything, including things that are utterly incomprehensible to the human mind and will, like, cause you to cave in, like AJ from Fairly Odd Parents, where your fucking brain just flattens. That's hilarious to me. In fact, I might put Old Lady in A just for that. It's kind of funny. I'm putting it in A. You ain't seen G-Ma's purse cut? Meemaw's strapped! Alright. Next Abno. Wesson. S tier. Are you fucking kidding me? He's number 1. If nobody got me, I know Wesson and Hundreds of Good Deeds got me. The first Abno you'll deal with in the game proper, not counting the training dummy. This thing will never do you wrong, and it also kills White Knight. What more do you want? Its ego gift is really cool. Its ego is pretty alright. All the glaze is justified. The hype is real. Wesson is the true savior. Next Abno. Open can of well cheers. This is going to be entirely biased, like this entire list, of course. But I'm going to put him in S. I like the funny shrimp fellas. I like the idea that when your employee dies to this thing, they actually don't die. They just find a happier job out in the ocean. But I will say, in consideration of what we now know what the ocean is like in Project Moon, maybe that's not so great. That being said, it's probably better than dealing with Lobotomy Corporation, right? In actual mechanics, Welcheers only ever provided benefits for me. I don't believe any of my employees ever went to sea once. It is very difficult to get one of your employees to die to Welcheers. So it does have an instant death mechanic technically, but you kind of have to try to get it to happen. So for that reason, and because Welcheers gives good vibes, the shrimp fellas are good vibes, I'm putting him in S. In unfortunate news, Parasite Tree. I imagine some people might say it's not that bad, but, no. Fuck that guy. All the trees in this game suck to varying degrees. Grave with a cherry sauce is the only good one. And even then, I put that in B. Giant tree sap sucks. Useless, and it can instantly kill your employee. Parasite Tree is constantly fighting you. It's always demanding your attention, and it's always making sure that you're paying attention to it and nothing else. Because if you don't pay attention to it, it'll make employees work with it, and when it hits 5, it decides to become nasty. Woo! Fuck off. I got other things to deal with. I don't want you in my facility. Get out. Plague Doctor. Now, do I judge this guy with respect to White Knight, or do I judge this guy on his own merits? In either case, wondering how the hell Train got an S tier? This isn't Train. This is Train. This is backwards clock. This is Train. Plague Doctor. Actually, I'm going to put Plague Doctor in D. His design's cool, if a bit derivative. I do like the ominous ticking clock of doom that eventually leads to White Knight. But here's why I'm putting it so low. Plague Doctor switches places. Every time you start a new day with Plague Doctor, it will switch its position in the facility. And that can be problematic. Especially as you progress through the game, where you limit the number of facilities or number of departments where a Clyfoth meltdown can occur. If you happen to get Plague Doctor in that facility and it swaps places with something that's very demanding, like, say, for example, Silent Orchestra. For example, say I have worked with Silent Orchestra, and I happen to get a good or a bad work result, it'll forgive me once. Its counter will go down to 1, so I can choose to not work with it for the rest of the day. However, if Plague Doctor switches places with Silent Orchestra, I have 2 options. I have to not work with it at all for that day unless I'm forced to, or I'm forced to gamble. And that's not good. There's also scenarios I can think of, like, what if it swaps places with Warm-Hearted Woodsman? Where as soon as you work with it once, it essentially becomes an instant death trap. Or you take a PE penalty. That is very bad. And the other thing is that if it has a meltdown and you don't work with it, it'll force someone to work with it. And obviously, if you don't know what's coming, that can be a problem. Hi, I love this game. Hi, Rainbow Nerds. How you doing? But yeah, I've put Plague Doctor there just on his own merits. If he didn't have the Abno switching going around, I would probably rank him a bit higher, but that alone is something worth considering because it can be a big problem. We could talk about White Knight later. Next Abno, Porcubus. You know, I want to put this guy in A. I fuck with Porcubus. It's a cute little design. It does have an instant death thing, but it did fuck me over twice, I think. I don't think the instant death thing is very punishing. I do think it is a very forgiving abnormality. It's also a pretty good trainer. Have you noticed that there's a surprising number of Abnos that exist to make Nugget's head explode? It's an amusing coincidence. Yeah. You don't remember what Porcubus does? It's one of those, if your stat is too high, it will instantly kill you. And it breaks out. Let's see. Oh no, it's if your stat's too low. If your temperance is 3 or lower, and you get a good result, you die. It basically skill checks you. If your stats are too low, die. And also, it doesn't take damage from ranged attacks. Which can be a bit annoying. But again, it's fairly easy to keep contained. It's an Abno you pick with intention, and one that you manage with intention. Like, you work with it, knowing that you're going to use it to train employees that are already pretty strong. Next Abno, Portrait of Another World. I would actually put it in C next to Mirror of Adjustment. But it does have a pretty niche use. And that's for squeezing your employees for PE. I think, the gimmick on its own is not particularly useful to me, and in fact can be a bit of a problem if you're not paying attention. But if you do pair it with Shelter and You Must Be Happy, you can get something like 500 boxes, which is a really good speedrunning strat, and is also really good for like, fuck, I need to meet quota. So that's a good niche. But in general gameplay, it's, you know, it's whatever. I think I'll put it above Letitia. No, I'll put it below Letitia. Next Abno. Hode. My cute little Yeti gorilla dog. S tier. I'm not even kidding. I could put it in A. It can break out. But it breaking out is like not that big of a deal. It's a really good trainer Abno too. If I remember correctly, it doesn't even instantly kill. It's cute. I think the idea is funny. The fact that it makes people talking ooh speech is amusing in a morbid way to me. And, you know, oddly enough, it has... here's a detail that some people forget. If it kills an employee, it just goes back to its containment. So, even if in the worst case scenario, one employee dies and it's gone. So, even as an early game Abno, it's not a catastrophic failure if it breaks out and kills someone. As a late game Abno, doesn't even matter, right? Like, it's... if it breaks out, you will just one-tap the fucker. Let's see. Next Abno, Skin Prophecy. This guy here's my goat, actually. Skin Prophet first appeared to me in Tifreth's floor, where I had Queen Bee and Censored. And what Skin Prophecy does is that it increases your white, essentially. It increases your prudence and it stacks, but it does cost, it basically trades your prudence for, like, you take more white damage, but your prudence goes up. Which is a problem when you're taking damage, but if it increases the chances of your work succeeding, you're actually taking less damage in the long run. And because it increases your prudence, it increases your SP, which means it makes dealing with Censored specifically very much less difficult. I will say this guy single-handedly saved my first Lobcorp playthrough. A very underrated abnormality, I would say. Next, Punishing Bird. This is like the guy, okay? He's an S tier. He fucked me over once in a Beano run, but I forgive him. Everybody gets one. So, like, being so for real, yes, it is a pain in the ass to be mindful of him when he's out and about in the facility and you're trying to, like, suppress something. But it's usually not that big a deal all that often. It is a bit of a pain in the ass when, like, you're trying to close out the day, but you don't want to lose the law point because he decided to break out. You can technically prevent that from ever happening, but you're usually just not really bothering with that. It is amusing to me that he's the reason my my hook with suppression turned into an apocalypse bird scenario. I think that's funny. And while he does make it so that I can't use the fucking Dream of a Black Swan Abno ego gift, I forgive him. He's just a little guy. Next Abno, Queen Bee. Fuck this Abno, dude. While the ego that it drops, Hornet, is like really dripped. Dealing with this abnormality, fuck it. No. Pain in my ass. You are gambling every time you work with this abnormality, and I don't like doing that. Especially because if you do lose the coin toss, or dice roll, I guess, it's not a 50-50, it's very annoying to clean up after. And I hate dealing with that every day with it in a facility. It's not worth it. Alright. Next abnormality. Red shoes. D. I don't like working with it. As much as Sanguine Desire is a goated ego in Limbus Company, and in Ruina, I'm pretty sure. In LobCorp, it kind of sucks. Red Shoes kind of sucks to deal with. I do appreciate this is one of the abnos that warns you when it's doing its thing. I don't like it basically being a force you to kill this guy scenario. It's also really bad to get early game because it skill checks you for Temperance 2. Or Temperance 3 specifically. If it's 2 or lower, you go crazy. This is one of those abnos that consistently demand your attention because if you work on it passively and you aren't paying attention, it'll start luring one of your employees to work on it so that it'll drive them crazy. You can stop this by tapping on them, but again, it's like it's wasting your time by doing this, and I don't like that. Oh, I gotta sneeze. Right then. Next abno. Rudolta. I'm gonna put him in A. In fact, I'm gonna put him pretty generously in A. Because Rudolta is a pretty good trainer. you can safely do quite a number of works with Redolta. And even when Redolta breaks out, the thing about Redolta is that it is a very slow-moving abnormality. You can quite safely deal with it at a distance. And you can reliably predict where it's heading. And it is a very safe target for suppressing for Gebra's missions. I distinctly remember getting Redolta alongside Scarecrow, and I found Redolta to be more reliable for training. I used Scarecrow early on to train lower level employees, but once they started getting a little too smart, I handed them over to Redolta, basically. And between Redolta and Scarecrow, I would take Redolta any day, just because, again, it's like... it's much safer to deal with. Not that Scarecrow's particularly effective, but... I don't like the draining gimmick. And speaking of, next Abno, Scarecrow. Scarecrow searching for wisdom. Not the worst of the Wizard of Oz Abnos. But definitely B tier. I don't like it when it's like, no, your stats are too high, because your stats are inevitably going to become too high. Like, once you get all of the perks from, I forget if it's Hokba. But one of the perks that you get from doing the days is all your agents that you hire from then on are skill 3 or higher. And, surprise, Scarecrow doesn't like it when you're too smart. He'll break out. And that's just very, very annoying. But at the very least, he doesn't instantly kill you for fucking breaking out. Or for pissing him off like that, at least. Yeah, he breaks out if you have a prudence of 3 or higher. Which, when you hire an agent that has 3 in all stats, surprise, that includes prudence. It's... don't like him. He's fine early on, but I don't like these skill check Abnos. Or rather, stat check Abnos. Next, Schadenfreude. C. When adhering to its gimmick, it is completely harmless. But it forces you to play a certain way. Don't like it. I like that it showed up in Leviathan. That was weird. But... dealing with it in gameplay, not it. I don't particularly remember its ego. I'm not a fan of the artwork for it. It's... you know? It is a unique gimmick, but it's not a gimmick I like. If it's not on the screen while you work on it, it's fine. If it's not on the screen while you're suppressing it, it'll just freeze and let you suppress it freely. But, you know, when you get into the late game LobCorp facilities, you want to kind of be zooming out, looking big picture. And this deliberately hampers that. And it becomes worse if you have the one that works the exact opposite way, that wants you to look at it. And especially if that Abno is somewhere else in like an opposite corner of the facility. Or no, it's bad if they're in the same facility, rather. Because one wants you to look, one doesn't want you to look. It's good if they're on the opposite corners, but if they're right next to each other, bad. Next. Little match scroll. fine. Didn't give me too much trouble. I imagine if you get her early on enough and you screw up and she tries following someone to explode, that could be a bit of a problem. But I think she's usually very manageable. She's a low-risk entity to deal with. I personally wouldn't put her in A. I think it's very funny that she drops a fucking cannon ego. She's like bordering A and B. It's a pretty good ego. I'll put her at bottom of A. Why not? She deserves it. But at the same time, I should put her in fucking D tier for that E-Song ego. Oh my goodness, is that Shelter from the 27th of March? See? Very situational Abno. You can use it to brute force Gebra's first suppression. Actually, I think you can use it to brute force both suppressions. But especially the first one. Shelter's an absolute meme. I don't hate it. But it's that thing again with Lobotomy Corporation jokes where it's funny the first time, twice not so much, 10 times, okay, well, come on, man. But the thing is, it rarely pulls that prank on you. Sometimes you'll get a scenario where, like, you have to work on it, but it's usually, like, late game, where once you're having to deal with that, you're probably also dealing with a shit ton of other things melting down, like during a Bina suppression. And, surprise, if you do work on this thing and forget about everything else because you're doing, or forget about it because you're working on everything else, yeah! It's gonna pop off! But, you know, it's kind of fine. I can't make it any higher because it's not particularly useful otherwise. There's, like, no reason to actually use it for safety reasons. It's just there to kind of play around with, you know? Next Abno. Today's Shy Look. I'm willing to put it in A. Because if you get it early on, you don't have enough Abnos that are constantly demanding your attention for this to be a problem. But if you get it late enough, it's not going to hurt you enough for not paying attention to it. The worst case scenario is that you send in a relatively low-level employee late game because you're rushing to get people working on things. And it does, like, increased damage against one of your lower-level employees who will by then ideally be a rank 3 employee, at the very least. Which I don't think is enough to kill them. But once you start, like, ramping up and all your employees start to become, like, rank 5 and everything, they start becoming senior employees, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you can just shove them in there just to get it out of the way. If you have the time and you want to pay attention and time it right, you can always ensure that you get the best outcome with it. but you can also brute force it late enough into the game. So it's not a big deal either way. Ah, yes. Next Abno, singing machine. Die. Literally, I hate this Abno. It's like red shoes, but worse. Your employee's too strong? Die. Your employee's too weak? Die. Do a bad job with it? Die. It also demands your attention because it will also possess your employees in that facility, and then it'll be like, hey, I'm gonna make this person go insane and try to toss one of your other employees into a fucking meat grinder. Hate it. Terrible. Let's see. Next Abno. Snow White's apple. D tier. This is a very demanding Abno that doesn't really get much out of you. The Ego Gear is okay. And when it breaks out, it permanently affects the facility in a way that makes it so that you have to slow down when walking through the stuff that it grows. So if you don't suppress it fast enough, it becomes a bigger problem. And I believe it has a Clifoth counter of 1, meaning it can and will break out quite often. And that's just very unpleasant to deal with consistently. This is one of those Abnos where if I get it once, as soon as I get the gear, I'm ditching it. A senior enough employee with a high repression or high justice can repress this fairly consistently. But if you get it early enough, that's a problem. Other than that, it's kind of unremarkable. The design's okay. Next Abno. The spiders. Spider Bud. I'm tempted to put this thing in B as well. B is apparently for the Abnos that teach you a lesson, but kind of become useless later on. The whole thing with this one is don't do insight. If you do insight, you... Or actually, it is do insight. Well, no. It is don't do insight. Don't do insight or you die instantly. You'll get a rebate for fucking this up because when it eats your employee, it generates more boxes. But... And that has unsettling implications. But... Working on it, it's like... It forces you to do 3 work. Ideally, I think it likes Fortitude the most. You can train attachment or repression on it, but you absolutely cannot do insight. You also can't be too weak for it. If you have Prudence level 1, death. So it teaches you that there's stat requirements and that you can't just willy-nilly do all kinds of work on an Abno. It can fuck you over the first time if you decide to do insight on it first, which you might be tempted to do based on its appearance, because it's got eyes. But it's also not super bad. Once you know what its gimmick is, it's never going to be an issue ever again. But it is also very limiting. Put it at the top of C, maybe? No, I'll put it in B. God, I forgot what this one's called. Burrowing Heaven. That's what this one's called. Burrowing Heaven, this is like the exact opposite of Schadenfreude. You have to look at it when you're working on it. The only reason I would rank it higher is because it gives more energy for working on it. But it's pretty much the same deal where it's like, it demands your attention, quite literally. It's not as bad to deal with the Schadenfreude because you can zoom out and you'll still be looking at it. But if you lose track of it, then you're fucked. That said, I think I'm going to be a little bit more generous to it. It's not as constraining as Letitia. Dimensional refraction... Oh, wait, there's the noise. I keep getting it mixed up. The noise isn't super bad, but it doesn't give as much as Burrowing Heaven does. But because of how demanding it is, I am going to put it here. I can't put it any higher. Oh, God. Space Boy. I forgot what this ad was actually called. Child of the Galaxy, I'm pretty sure. I was gonna say Child of the City. Kind of annoying. He can make your, employee fucking pop and explode. Hello, Mons. He does... He does benefit the employee who works on him. But... like Letitia, it basically binds whichever employee worked on it to it. Which is not great. And if that employee just so happens to die, things get ugly. He's a little more beneficial in that he won't outright explode your employee if you don't work on him. But the thing is, if you get multiple employees to work on him, and the counter happens to drop to 0, all those employees instantly die. So this is one of those admirals that basically says, have one person dedicated to working on it if you're going to be working on it that day, and then just like keep them attached to that so they don't pop. Because they've got an inverse gimmick where if like their counter keeps going up when the person working with them with the pebble works on them. And then whoever's holding it will take damage proportional to how many counters there were if that person works on another abno. Which, I am not a fan of especially needy abnormalities. Every abnormality in the game has some kind of need, but some are a bit needier than others. And this is one of them. Next one, Dreaming Current. This one makes me uncomfortable to look at. The implications of what it is makes me very uncomfortable, and I appreciate that. That being said, when it breaks out, whoo, boy, that's a problem. But at the same time, I think it's relatively easy to work with. The employee just has to not panic, and they have to have a temperance higher than 1. It's the lightest of stat checks, and because it's already a higher tier abno, you kind of already have to have higher stats. And it's also a pretty decent trainer. I believe you could do attachment and fortitude. You can't do insight. I think that doesn't work. You can also do repression. Breaking out, when it breaks out, that's trouble. I won't say it breaking out is an instant game over, but it makes things significantly harder. So where would I rank that? I think that goes comfortably in a B. Had a friend who streamed this game, hell of a game. Yep, sure is. It's less painful to deal with than Melting Love. More beneficial than Forsaken Murderer, but also more dangerous. Next, Heart of Aspiration. You know what? This guy's pretty goated. You equip it once, don't ever return it. Just keep fighting. Like, literally, just equip it once, don't even think about returning it. Just use it for the rest of the day. There is no downside to just doing that. This is probably the most useful Eagle tool in the game, generally. There's an argument to be made for backwards clock being more useful in a very specific scenario, but generally, Heart of Aspiration is the best overall Eagle tool to use in the game. Next, King of Greed. I like her design. I like it more in Ruina. The Nightmare Fish is pretty interesting too, admittedly. I think I'm gonna put her in C, though. Top of C because she's not super demanding, but like if you mess up once, she's only got the 1 counter. And even though she's extremely slow moving, it basically means you have to suppress her from behind with melee and risk her turning around and you forgetting about that, or suppress her with ranged. I will say it's nice that she drops an Aleph Ego weapon, even if her actual armor is the tier below that. But I would rather not have this in the facility, especially with like respect to something like suppressing Bina. And also, her odds of dealing with her are a little demanding. Not the most demanding in the game, but kind of annoying. The design of the ego is really cool, though. I like it. I'd put her higher, but she's just really annoying. Next Abno, Knight of Despair, my beloved, you go in S tier. My beautiful wife. This is a very intentional abnormality. She will not ever be an issue if you know what you're doing. And even if you don't know what you're doing, you still kind of have to try to get her to freak out. Because the way she works is, the first person to work with her gets bonded to her if they do a good job. That person can no longer work on any other admin for the rest of the day, which means they're basically consigned to fighting things for the rest of the day. That is, ordeals, or any abnos that break out. Meaning that employee is effectively immune to the instant death effects of working with abnos. However, if another abno breaks out and kills that employee, then she freaks out because you let her last fucking charge die. And that's on you. But what I would used to do is that I would get the employee who has the magic bullet ego and have them work on her so that they could be the lone gunman who deals with things with a rifle that shoots an entire room, but now is extremely buffed and can just obliterate and penetrate things. Oh, speaking of penetration, yes, would. Next abno, the Little Prince, D tier. I don't like this abno. I think it looks kind of cool. I hate this guy, though. It's one of these abnos that has an additional gimmick on top of managing the, do this work on it, do this work on it. They stack spores. If the same employee keeps working on it, they'll turn into like a little mini instance of it, and you'll have to kill the employee. It's an okay trainer, but the way it works is that you need the one employee to work on it and do work other than insight. It's very frustrating and requires a lot more attention to avoid someone dying. You either have one person like cycling work on it, or you are very careful about what work you're doing on it. Like, I personally didn't have an issue keeping track of it and memorizing it, but the fact that I have to track and memorize what it's doing at all kind of peeves me, especially as the facility gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's also kind of annoying when it's one of the only abnos in a part of the facility that still gets meltdowns. Like, as you suppress the layers, if you get it in a floor that hasn't had the realization done yet, you're gonna have to keep working on it, which means you're gonna have to keep focus more attention on it, and this, whatever. It's just something I would rather not deal with. I think his ego gear's cute, fine. I like the colors, actually. I could do without, like, the little purple flap parts. I don't know what that's called on a suit. But yeah, these are the D tier admirals are all admirals I like would rather not have. I don't consider them particularly useful in a facility, or otherwise too demanding for the benefit that they offer. Next admiral is one that I find very contentious. That's mounted to smiling bodies. Because it could be anywhere from completely manageable to utter nightmare scenario. So to that end, it is a very demanding abnormality, but it's also really cool. I like its design. I like its gimmick. It is a terrifying thing. Its ego is really cool. If you deal with it fast enough, it's fine. If there's no bodies near it when it breaks out, it's fine. This is one of the more easily manipulated abnos, and that makes it a prime candidate for Gebra's suppression mission. Now the question is, do I want it in S or A? I think I'm going to put it in A because when it's at its worst, it is basically a hopeless scenario. And that's usually your fault if that happens. But it's still really bad when it happens. Next one, the nest. I don't fuck with this guy. If you fuck with this guy, I don't fuck with you. I hate Naked Nest. I hate abnos like Naked Nest. If you get a good work result, fine. But you're gambling every time you work with it. If you get anything but a good work result, it might become an infection. And it's so... This is not something I would like to deal with. I don't like gambling every time I work on an abnormality. It's a pain in the ass. And I especially don't like the fact that it can infect other employees. This is like the worst aspects of every abno I can think of. Except for maybe the clerk's rights. And speaking of clerk's rights, let's talk about clerk's wrongs. Queen of Hatred. She's not going in S tier. Iconic as she is. Pain in my fucking ass when she's a problem. When she's not a problem, she's whatever. Her ego gift, her ego's very cute, very nice. But dealing with her in a facility, absolutely fucking not. Even when I'm able to safely kill her without any of my employees dying, no. Get out of my fucking facility. I have mixed feelings about her. I love her, but I hate her. At her best, she's super cute and adorbs. At her worst, get the fuck out of my facility, you spawn of the Antichrist. Overall, I like her. But she's not going in S tier. I can't accept her in S tier. Night of Despair, I can accept in S tier. That also tells you about my taste in women. Teresia, absolutely not. Actually, tree sap. I'll put it right next to tree sap. Because this is an Abno that's like useless to awful. Its whole thing is, if you leave an employee in there for less than 20 seconds, whoever listening, everyone in that department's SP will go up, which is such a niche thing. But if you leave them longer for 20 seconds, the employee will start panicking, which is so not worth it. Teresia is good if like you need something that will fill a spot there that isn't like the fucking train, right? Something that if a meltdown happens and you need to interact with it, you just click it and click off. That's fine, but its greatest use is being useless. That SP recovery is so niche that I can't fathom a scenario where it's consistently useful. Next Abno, Silent Orchestra. Do I really need to explain why Silent Orchestra is here? Its ego, possibly the coolest fucking ego to exist. That shit is immaculate drip. But all the downsides of having it in your facility are just outrageously awful. You do a good job, it'll flip its shit. You do a bad job, it'll flip its shit. Farming this thing's ego is a pain. It gives you one chance to fuck up, which means you can't work on it ever again if you fuck up without risking a nightmare scenario. And if you decide to deal with that nightmare scenario, it becomes basically a super boss. It is almost as complicated as Apocalypse Bird to suppress, except unlike Apocalypse Bird, you have to consistently deal with this thing being a constant threat. And that's incredibly annoying. The reason I rank it above All Reun is because All Reun doesn't give you a second chance. It just breaks out. That's just what it is. It hates you. Silent Orchestra will give you one chance to not fuck it. One more chance to not fuck it up again. And also because it's an Aleph, it does technically give better results overall. Including the gear and such. And the fact that the Capo Ego Gift essentially makes you immune to white damage, that's really good. But it better be that fucking good for the kind of shit that this puts you through. Like, even if you are able to suppress Silent Orchestra, if you don't suppress it fast enough, all of your PE boxes go away. And guess what? That's basically as good as resetting the day. Next Abno, Snow Queen. S tier. Here's why. One, it's got lore implications. It tells you more about Carmen. Tells you more about Ian. Tells you about Angela. And that comes back later in Ruina. But also, as an abnormality, it's a really good trainer, and it gives a really good gift to 2 employees at the same time. Sure, it can freeze one of your employees, but you can unfreeze the employee by sending in a stronger employee to save that employee. And you both get really cool battle scars out of it. Its ego gift, or its ego that it drops, is also really cool. Pun intended. Like, what's it called? Frost Splinter? Yeah, that is a really cool looking outfit. Again, pun intended. Generally very useful. Very hard to fuck up. Cool lore on it. Good appearance. Very useful in gameplay. Just really good all around. Next, Void Dream. I'm pretty sure I'm tossing you in that B tier with all these other folks. You get it early on, it's kind of a problem because you might not be strong enough to deal with its shit. That being said, it doesn't completely lose its mind until you hit it. It can instantly kill you. It's one of the stat check abnos where if you have lower than 2 temperance, or yeah, if you have lower than 2, you'll effectively instantly die. When it breaches, it'll put every employee near it to sleep, but those employees can be woken up if you just, like, keep tapping them. And it'll eventually go back into its containment. But if you hit it, it flips its shit. And if it flips its shit and you still have employees who are asleep, they immediately panic. It's a bit annoying to deal with. But generally, if you get it late enough, it's never going to be a problem and you can use it to train. It's only a problem when it's early on. So again, it's like, it's one of these early game teachers that kind of eventually fall off, and later on in the game you're like, I guess I'll take it. Like, I would take Void Dream over fucking Scarecrow. I might even take it over Fragments of the Universe. Next, Lady Facing the Wall. Wood, but also D tier. Here's the thing. It's not particularly bad to work with. It's not particularly remarkable as an abnormality either. It's just a lady with a fat ass staring at the wall. And you can work with it. It's generally flexible to work with. Not that way. But if you do the work bad, sometimes it screams at you. And I don't like that. It's as simple as that. If I can help it, I will take a similarly benign abno that doesn't spooky my screen every so often. Next, Warm-Hearted Woodsman. Are you kidding? I hate this guy. Especially if you get him later, because it's like, all of your employees are too strong to deal with him. Meaning you can only work on him once a day unless you deliberately want to kill one of your employees. Because the way he works is, if your fortitude is too high, and I think it's literally just above 2, like Scarecrow, his counter will lower, and the next time you have someone go in, he'll instantly kill that employee and use them as his heart. In other words, if you have this abno in your facility by endgame, it's dead weight. It's an active hindrance. Anyway, next. We can change anything. Kind of a meme. I'll put it above shelter. This is the employee juicer. You stick an employee in there with ideally higher HP, and it will start squeezing the juice out of them in exchange for free boxes, but it will guaranteed kill them. You can maximize your profits by combining We Can Change Anything with an employee who has used Portrait of Another World. And then putting them in the shelter while putting the person that Portrait of Another World starts targeting after interacting with it. Because the way it works is Portrait of Another World will redirect any damage the employee who used it on to another employee, and that employee will have a mark. So what you do is you put the now immortal employee, you put the employee into the shelter, and the one that has the portrait goes into the juicer. That damage gets redirected to the employee who's immortal in the shelter. And it'll squeeze, not quite infinite anymore, because I think they changed it so that at a certain point, they will just juice the employee so hard they just fucking get atomized. But it still drops like 500 plus PE boxes, which is really good for speedruns, and is really good for hitting quotas in a pinch. That being said, general use, you're not going to be making much use of this thing. White Knight. Ah, boy, do I have mixed feelings about you, Mr. Antichrist. First of all, what an insane looking abno. Really cool. It makes a hell of an entrance. Literally, it becomes a super boss. And you can't quit. You have to deliberately rewind to the memory repository. But the thing is, because it used to be the Plague Doctor abnormality, once the Plague Doctor becomes White Knight that first time, even if you rewind to the memory repository, it's gonna be White Knight for the rest of the game. And White Knight is an especially needy little bitch of an abnormality. It deals pale damage. If you ignore it, its counter starts going down and starts inflicting pain upon you. And if it goes to 0, it turns 12 of your employees who received its blessing as the Plague Doctor into its apostles. And they're immortal. And White Knight is immune to almost every form of damage in the game. The only guaranteed way to kill it is with one sin. And even then, one of your employees has to get sacrificed for that. In fact, I'm pretty sure it kills all of the apostles, actually. So you lose 12 employees for that. So either micromanage the shit out of this guy or suffer the consequences. That being said, it drops a pale damage, or it drops one of the best egos in the game. You have to kill it for the weapon, though. I never was able to kill it. call it skill issue, call it whatever you want. This guy is him, but he is not he, the Lord. Know your fucking place, trash. Next, Yin and Yang. I'm not going to put them at the absolute bottom, but I'm going to rank them together. They're both going in this tier. You can use... God, which one's the actual Abno? Yes, you can use Yin as a trainer, but I would rather not have it because it will eventually force you to demand... It'll demand you to get Yang as the tool Abno for that floor. And they break out often, surprisingly. Yang in general is not a very good tool. I've never gotten any use out of it. Yin, at least you can kind of work with it. It's got a counter of 2. You can use it as a Fortitude, Insight, or Justice trainer, but there are so many better options, and this is an extremely volatile Abno to take. Because if you take it, you're forced to use Yang, and if this one breaks out, Yang will also break out, and if you use Yang as an earring, I believe it also can break out. Yeah, basically, wearing it for 30 seconds will cause Yang to break out, and that will cause Yin to break out. It's not very useful to use. It's... The benefits that Yang provides are not very good. And, like... You have to consider that it does give you high defenses for 30 seconds. It gives you high white resistance, and it heals your SP for 30 seconds. What are you going to do in those 30 seconds while you have that equipped? You keep in mind, you also have to return it within those 30 seconds. Where are you going to go? And then if you break out, you have to kill both of them at the same time. Because otherwise, they'll revive, and you have to prevent them from touching, because if they touch, they turn into a fucking dragon. And that dragon is worse than the goddamn train. It's so... not worth it to take these things. They're probably a pair of the worst abnormalities in the game. But they're not... literally gambling. You know what you're getting into when you run these guys. Next, you must be happy, not to be confused with you must become strong. C tier as well. It's got its uses. It helps with, I believe, HOD suppression, because it can increase your stats artificially. But if you increase it too high, you'll explode. If you use it too many times, you explode. Ideally, I don't fuck with this thing, because it can also decrease your stats as well. So if you have to reuse it to... if you fuck up a number of times, that's it for your employee. And you can't pause to cheat it out, because pausing will effectively count as canceling the work on the thing, which will, determine the points. So it's not super useful. All right. Next up. You are bald. Your bald is cute. It doesn't do anything harmful aside from turning you bald. If the employee working on it is bald, it's all good. If they're not bald, I believe you'll become bald if you work on it. Yeah, let's see. If a non-bald employee works on it, at the end of the work, a flashing light will appear on the employee's head, making them bald. And if another non-bald employee works on it the same day, everyone in the facility becomes bald. Or in the department. No, it's... one employee becomes bald, the entire department becomes bald, then the facility becomes bald. Which I think is funny. It's harmless. And that has a practical use, if you can believe it. And also it has a niche but ranged ego, which can only be used by bald people. In other words, bald is awesome. B for bald. And just like that, I think we have ranked every Abno. Huh, that didn't take that long. I honestly thought I was going to be the full 4 hours. But yeah, I guess tomorrow I will be streaming Limbus Company if any of you guys are interested in that. When I'm not streaming Limbus Company on Wednesdays, I'm reading the books that those characters in Limbus Company are based on. Right now, I'm currently going through Crime and Punishment. We're in the middle of part 2 of that book. You can check my VODs if you want to read along to those. Not sure why you would want to, though. And Thursday, I will be playing Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Friday, I will be playing... The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Saturday will be Zenless Zone Zero, and Sunday will be Promise Mascot Agency. So yeah, if you're new to this channel, please consider giving me a follow here at twitch.tv/WildWesson, or if you're watching from YouTube, hello everyone, I'm watching you too. Please consider subscribing to me at youtube/WildWesson. Oh yeah, there's one more. What does this button do?